Hi, I'm Tim Nichols, and welcome to the Mr. Maple Show. Today, we've got some really neat conifers to talk to you about. Today's topic is dwarf conifers.
Hey, I'm Matt Nichols, and thanks for clicking on another Mr. Maple video. If you like dwarf conifers, like this video. If you like dwarf conifers, share this video. And if you like dwarf conifers, comment in the comment section below. We greatly appreciate all those, and we greatly appreciate your patronage to MrMaple.com. Definitely check out our 10 at 10s, where a lot of this conifer content will be coming very soon.
Dwarf conifers. This is such a fun, exciting topic. Everybody loves dwarf conifers because they're evergreen, they fit in small spaces, and they're just so unique and so different. We've got so many fun dwarf conifers. Today we're going to be talking to you about 5 different dwarf conifers, but we do offer a lot of other dwarf conifers on our website on MrMaple.com, and we'll be offering more and more as the years go on.
Hey, we love your comments below. We read those. One of the most requested videos is dwarf conifers, and that's what we've got for you today. So we've got a small assortment here of some really nice ones that make a great compact conifer garden. They're great for that evergreen interest, but also that really miniature overall size. So they're not going to be plants that get very big very quickly, but they're going to give that interest, especially in the winter garden and really throughout the year.
Everyone loves the color blue, so why not have a dwarf conifer that's blue? Today, one of our first ones we'll be talking to you about is Picea pungens blue pearl.
Now this is a dwarf cultivar. It's very compact in its nature, typically only reaching about a foot even in 10 years, so it's going to be very, very small. Classic for that blue color. This is a cultivar that was found as a witch's broom. Check out our videos on witch's brooms, and we talk a lot about those. So it's a dwarf mutation, and this was a compact one off Fat Albert. It's sometimes referred to as Fat Albert WB, just meaning witch's broom. Again, that's for that small, compact, dense habit.
Yeah, and so this is an excellent small little dwarf. These are good zones 3 through 7 when it comes to your hardiness zones. That means if you're in a hotter zone, probably wouldn't be the best for you, but the neat thing about this is it extends past down to zone 3. So a lot more people can grow this that are outside of zones 5 through 9 with our typical maples.
Yeah, we always like to mention when we're talking about zones, zones are really based on how cold it gets. So they're not really based on how hot it gets. Our zone high ends are estimations that typically work for the East Coast, but maybe a little different on the West Coast. Now this is an excellent way to put that blue in the garden. You've probably seen our Japanese maple video about blue Japanese maples, and those don't exist, but there's some great shades of blue conifers. This is a Colorado blue spruce. It's going to put a ton of color in your garden.
And this is a nice dwarf. I mean, it's really a miniature. It's one of the smallest of the dwarf conifers on those Picea pungens that's commercially available. And this is one of those plants that just is so awesome. Any collector's got to have it. It's one that fits in containers excellently and also fits in those small places in the gardens where you want to add some extra color and also have an evergreen.
Yeah, you've heard me say this before, but I love when a plant has a good name, and blue pearl just, I can't say it, blue pearl fits this perfectly for that compact, dense habit. So sticking with today's theme of dwarf conifers, next we have Picea glauca Pixie Dust. Now this is another great compact form that typically only reaches about 1.5 foot even in 10 years.
By about a half a foot wide. I mean, so it's going to have that nice conical shape, excellent for fairy gardens, a real slow grower. But this one puts on new growth flushes that are almost that yellow color, which contrasts so nicely against that dark green, which is probably where this gets the name of Pixie Dust.
Yeah, it's an awesome tree for the fairy garden especially. You've heard us talk a lot about fairy gardens, which is always a trend in gardening, and Pixie Dust for the name, for the shape, for the color, for all aspects is perfect for that pixie or fairy garden. Now we actually have a couple different types here. We have the Pixie Dust here, which are low grafted, and then we also have some Pixie Dust on standard. So you can kind of see we've put these up on a raised rootstock to kind of give it that elevated lollipop type look. And it's a great way to grow these if you want to kind of raise them up a little bit. But there's also the more traditional low graft as well on the Pixie Dust.
I mean, you can just see this plant right now in a fairy garden, decorated with Christmas lights for Christmas, that Christmas theme, or a miniature railroad garden. I mean, it's such a unique dwarf conifer that just adds that extra oomph. And then when you get that new growth flush that adds something even extra to it, it really takes it over the top. It makes this something special that really can go in anyone's garden. But if you have a nice container you really want to show something off, or if you want to create one of those miniature railroad gardens or fairy gardens, this is an excellent, excellent choice for that.
I love to see this dwarf conical white spruce in a colorful pot or container. It's a great candidate for that brightly colored container on the patio planter where you can kind of play around with the light a little bit, and it just makes a really fun tree. These work zones 2 through 8, so a good one for the colder climates as well, but one that's going to provide a lot of color, especially in that spring flush.
Next, we have a dwarf Korean pine. This is one that we like quite a bit. It's always something special whenever we know the person who introduced it. This one has such a nice rounded habit and a dense habit. We were so excited the first time we got this plant, and we're so excited every time we offer it because it's really like extending something we love out to y'all.
Yeah, Gary G's a good personal friend of mine and Tim's. We've been up to his place. If you've ever seen G Farms, they're a really nice nursery. Gary, shoot, he was at my wedding. Really nice guy, so hospitable too. We went up to visit him and collect signwood before. Really interesting man. You'll see several of his cultivars having G in there, like Gee Whiz and of course Gee Broom. Now this may be one of his best introductions. It's a great cultivar for the color and shape, but what really makes it fit in this video is that dwarf overall habit.
This one will end up getting about 2.5 to 3 feet tall and 2.5 to 3 foot wide. Very compact and dense. That's the thing that makes this so awesome, is its tight, rounded habit. It's one of those plants you just look at, and because of that sort of bluish texture to the leaves being that Korean pine, it really just gives it something extra being that tight, compact habit. I remember going visiting Gary.
It was a cold day. Cold week.
We went and visited Gary, drove around his arboretum. He drove around his arboretum in 4-wheel drive. It was snow on the ground. It was probably 10 degrees.
Well, yeah, Gary said, come now because it's when the weather's good. We went probably in like January-ish, and it was good for there, you know, where he's at. It was like, I think it was actually 6 degrees and about 8 inches of snow, which was better than the next week, which was like -20. So it was the warm part there. So we really enjoyed that. Oh man, they were so hospitable. His wife made us dinner and we stayed there. And Gary's just such an interesting guy. You know, this was a cultivar that was found off the cultivar Winton, but Gary actually does an extensive amount of brooming. So he goes out there and
hunts
up
for
the peninsula and Michigan and just searches all over for unique brooms. And it's a fun way, you know, it's the hunting of the plant world, right? You get to go out there and broom hunt, and he comes up with some great ones that way. I mean, this one was one off a specific cultivar, but just a fun guy. And man, I like Gee Broom a lot.
Yeah, this one just has such a nice dense habit. Another one that's going to be excellent for containers. You can hear us say that a lot about these dwarf conifers because they really are. The key things with these things is to make sure you really get really good drainage. And this is a plant that will really make a unique specimen in the landscape that you're really going to enjoy, that's going to bring a lot to a little space.
I think this one's just super colorful. I don't consider it variegated, but it has all those undertones that just make it so multicolored.
Yeah, and because of that, this is going to be one that really stands out, and everyone loves this. Whenever you're looking at other witches brooms, this is one that always has more of that animal lively feel. This is something fluffy that you're going to want to add in your landscape.
So next up we have another beautiful dwarf. You know, if you've heard me talk about the things I always like the flashy ones. This one definitely brings that flash to the garden. This is Cohoot's Icebreaker, or sometimes referred to as just Icebreaker.
Yeah, this one is a nice, dense dwarf that forms a rounded ball. It was found as a witch's broom on Hortsman's Silberlock. Everyone loves that plant because the way the needles curve backwards, you see the silver to the back side of the needles. That makes this plant have that white color to it. And with this being a witch's broom on it, you get a nice, white, dense, rounded ball.
Yeah, it really shows out there in the garden. It's one of those ones that's going to be peak interest all year. It contrasts with pretty much everything out there because of that bright, bright white that it displays. It's going to bring high intensity to the container garden or in the landscape. You know, it's really one that's going to show out, and I love it. I love seeing these paired with lace leaves for that darker overall interest because, wow, they really show out. Now, this is one that you want to protect from some of the more humid areas. It's an excellent plant, but it doesn't want high heat humidity.
It also is one that's very critical on making sure that you have good drainage. This one is one that really adds something special and unique though as a dwarf conifer, giving you that silver color with that leaf, that needle that curves backwards. So the texture is very unique and different, almost looking like every branch is a white cone. And that's really what makes this plant so special, so unique, And as one of these matures, it becomes even more special and unique with that rounded habit. Next, we have a dwarf yellow conifer. I love the yellows. This is Tom Thumb.
Tom Thumb is a great one for that compact habit. Again, we're discussing dwarf conifers today. This one brings that high intensity of the yellow. We've actually got these Tom Thumbs on a little bit of a standard, so it kind of boosts them up a little bit. It's the stilts of the plant world here, so we've boosted these up in height a little bit. Tom Thumb as a cultivar is very small, at only about 2 foot even in 10 years, so it's a very slow grower that's very compact. We do like these on that standard though, to kind of give them that lollipop-like look for that small dwarf conifer.
Yeah, this is our first time offering it on a standard. We have offered it before as a low graft, so make sure if we're offering it at a different point later, they may be offered as a low graft versus on a standard or a high graft lollipop like we have here today. But this is an extremely slow grower, 2 feet in 10 years, and so they're going to be a very small conifer overall.
Yeah, these are a great way to grow them on the standard like this. I joked earlier that we had to shave the legs a little bit because you do want to be conscious of the understock. Whenever you're growing them on a standard, they're grafted right up here. So anything that occurs below the graft, you do always want to remove that. Typically, when you do it on younger plants, it's not going to become a reoccurring issue, but it is something you always want to look at with any high grafts. Shave their legs a little bit.
Tom Thumb was found as a witch's broom on Skylands by Tom Thumb Nursery, later introduced by John Vercade and grafted and introduced by him. It's such a fun dwarf miniature golden conifer that's going to add a lot to a small space by even adding color, that tight compact habit. I mean, those dwarf miniature conifer gardens, this one's going to stand out.
Another classic by that Vercade family. We're hoping to actually set up some interviews with our good friend Dave Vercade, and maybe we can get into a little bit more of the lore and history and a lot of the introductions that are from that Vercade family. They've had so many that are so classic, especially when you get into conifers.
Yeah, and being that this is a Picea orientalis, this is good zones 4 through 8, and so it's going to be one that takes you down another zone colder than a typical Japanese maple. That's one of the reasons we like a lot of these dwarf conifers, is people can garden with these in colder zones. And if you've got some sunlight and good drainage, a lot of these dwarf conifers are really going to thrive for you. Dwarf conifers add so much to the landscape and garden. We brought 5 for you here today, but I mean, we could go on and add so many other fun dwarf conifers, and some we've already talked about, like Moseri, which gives some nice winter color. So check out our website if you're looking for dwarf conifers, because we offer a lot more than these 5. And when you watch this video, some of these may be sold out later down the road or be yet to come down in a future 10 at 10.
Yeah, I talked to a customer the other day, and they found our Instagram page, and they were like, "Oh, I didn't know you do conifers." And I'm like, "You've been missing so much. Let me show you how to get there on our website." So definitely check out our conifer section. We'll be adding a lot of these to upcoming 10 at 10, so we had 10 new plants every Tuesday, and there's some really fun and exciting ones. But we love conifers here at MrMaple. We've actually listed a lot, so definitely check that out, and the MrMaple files you can read even more. So we've got a nice assortment of some compact dwarf conifers here. I'll start out with a different question here. We often talk about pairings. Which of these is one of your favorite pairings to do for dwarf conifers? Because most of these will fit in to a conifer garden in some way. So you can kind of plant these in a way where they accentuate other conifers or some of these.
So pairings with each other is what you're saying?
With these here.
So if I was looking at these 5 trees we have here, 5 selections, I would probably go with the Tom Thumb because I love my yellow, and then Pixie Dust, because they're so starkly different in their shape and their color that they're going to add a lot of unique, and they're some of the smallest.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to be extremely tiny, and they would both fit side by side extremely well in a garden.
Yeah. I like that pairing a lot. I'm always like a big fan of the yellows. If I were going to pair a few of these two, I would actually pair something a little different. I'd go with the blue and the white. Just kind of a fun color to play off of there. The blue pearl and the icebreaker, those are a fun combination. Both are going to have very small compact shapes, but provide very different colors in the landscape. So that bright white of the icebreaker is really going to play off that blue pearl, and both are going to kind of give you that frosty, wintry, frozen appeal to them.
And while we're looking down this list, I see blue pearl, that was a conifer of the year. Pixie Dust was a conifer of the year. I believe Icebreaker was also a conifer.
Every one of these were conifer of the year.
Maybe.
I think so.
If they're not, let us know in the comments. they're all amazing selections. If they're not, they should be.
I'm fairly certain each of these were American Conifer Society conifer here. If not, they should be.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think all these are. So Tim, which of these is your favorite conifer on the table?
That's pretty hard because I really liked all of these.
Yeah, there's a 1A and a 1B for this one for me.
There's a reason why we selected these 5 is because we liked all of these. I mean, this Pixie Dust on the standard's awesome. I mean, I love the yellows. I love Gary G and the brooms that he puts out, especially Gee Broom. I'd probably go with Icebreaker.
That's a great choice. It'd probably be my 1B for me too.
Yeah.
I mean, it brings the drama. You know, you like, we talk about how we like the dramatic, flashy plants.
Watch the heat and the humidity on Icebreaker. If you've got too much heat, give it some protection from the hot afternoon sun.
Yeah, it's one everybody's going to brag about.
Yeah.
You know, you go to a conifer collector, it's one they're going to be stunting on you on with their collection. They're going to be like, well, check out my Icebreaker over here. You know, you go to some of these gardens and you're just like in awe at some of these Icebreakers you see, and you're like, wow, okay, that's the best one I've seen. And then you go to another garden and you're like, okay, that may be the best Icebreaker. But it's one of those collector plants that people may like to brag on a little bit if you got a really nice one.
They'll take you to the garden and they'll say, like you said the other day, let me break the ice. Let me show you my Icebreaker. And it's one of the ones that's just going to be awesome and amazing.
It is a hard pick for me on my favorite. Gosh, I really like a lot of these. You know, I'm partial to the Picea glaucas. It's really a tricky choice for me. I would probably go with Gee Broom just because, you know, Gary's a good friend. I thought it was such a cool plant. I was friends with Gary before I had the plant, so it was like something special to receive it afterward. And it kind of just has a sentimental place to me because of that. Plus, it's just a really cool plant. Like, it shows out in the garden. Like, I love the shape and the density of it. It does everything you want in a dwarf conifer.
See, my second choice was Blue Pearl, actually.
Okay.
And I didn't even talk about that. That was the one I was trying to figure out between it and Icebreaker. And I like just the blue color that provides in such a small, dense, compact space. I mean, being a dwarf blue Colorado spruce, it's one of the tightest and densest ones commercially available that grows but isn't, it's super tiny. I mean, it's still a true dwarf miniature.
Now, one great thing about these, you heard us mention it earlier, but I think all these are zone 4 or colder. And these are plants that will really push that zone tolerance for you. We even have some zone 2s here. So some very cold tolerant plants, some great plants for that winter interest garden, for that conifer collector. These are all true miniature dwarfs for sure. So they're gonna have that compact overall habit and really something I think that adds to the collection. We kind of picked some out here with a little bit of a diversity to the trait here. So you got a little something for everybody, but I'm a fan of these 5 here for sure. It's a collection. I've got every one of these that I want to plant in my garden or is already in the garden. So
yeah, dwarf conifers just add that extra oomph. They go pair so well with Japanese maples. And so if you've got somewhere that's got good drainage and can avoid the high heat and humidity, a lot of these are going to really thrive and do well in the landscape and garden.
Hey, thanks for watching our quick look at dwarf conifers. We hope you've enjoyed this. We're going to be doing more conifer content here on the MrMaple Show. So definitely like, subscribe, and comment if you like conifers below. We had a great reaction to that when we asked about conifer content early on, so we wanted to provide a lot more of that for you, and dwarf conifers being paramount amongst those that are asked for. So everybody wants to talk about dwarf conifers, and there's some really fun ones here. I hope you enjoyed this video because these are some of my favorites.
If you like dwarf conifers, like this video. If you like dwarf conifers, we're going to be putting more of that out, so make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and always subscribe to MrMaple.com's email. We add 10 new exciting trees, but we're also adding tons of conifers to that as well. And so every week, there'll often be a dwarf conifer in that email, maybe multiple. So definitely check that out. That's going to be an email that you don't want to miss out on because when we list these, a lot of these sell out really quickly. And I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. God bless.
And have a great day. Hey, I just wanted to remind everybody about our giveaway. All you have to do to be entered is like, subscribe, and share to our YouTube channel, and then post in the comment section below, I dig MrMaple. And that's going to enter you to win. You can enter under every single video. So just a reminder, every single video is a chance to win. We're getting very close. We're creeping up on it pretty fast. We're going to hit 8,000 pretty soon. And when we do, we're going to select some people to win this hat. If this is a popular thing, we may be doing more. Get involved.